as you're looking ahead to your art plan and an example assignment coming up, I thought I would share an example with you and make sure that you know where to look to find the standards that you're going to need for this project. So first, we'll look at some visual art standards, and I'm focusing on 7th grade this time because I'll be looking at 7th grade social studies. So if we go into our middle school visual art standards, we see that we have grades 6 through 8, and then also that visual art glossary that is really, really important. So in 7th grade, looking at visual arts, I am going to, let's see, which one of these did I select? I'm going to select one of these that's relevant to the social studies lesson that I'm going to do. So I would be looking through these to see what might be appropriate. Oh, look at this, cultural and historical perspective. So this could be a really good fit with social studies. Look at this, explore connections between art production and imagery relative to social and political climates. That one doesn't fit exactly what we're going to do right now, but we'll look at it and see which one might fit. So for the 7th grade lesson, I decided that I wanted to do something that is related to a recent event, and that being the recent volcanic eruption in Tonga, in the island country of Tonga, because it's had quite significant impact on not only the people there on the island, but in other places around because of all the gases in the air and the ash and other impacts from that. So if I go to my standards for social studies, if you're not familiar with these standards, an easy way to get there is go to the State Department of Education, SDE. And when you get here, I go to services and then academic standards. And from here, I go to social studies, and notice that these were adopted in 2019. And then I'm going to find 7th grade. So I can skip down to page 29. And look at this one. Student will analyze the interactions of humans and their environment in the Eastern Hemisphere. Well, we are in the Western Hemisphere, but Tonga is in the Eastern Hemisphere. So that fits very well with our 7th grade standards right now. So I know that this is going to be my broad standard. And then from that, I narrowed it down to 7.4.1, which is to analyze the impact of climate events, weather patterns, and natural disasters. That's where that fits on human populations and the environment, resulting in forced migration, scarcity of consumer goods, economic activities, and loss of life. So we know that forced migrations have certainly resulted from this. I would spend time doing a lesson or a mini lesson with the students prior to having them do this art project, of course, but this will be what I call a substandard. They actually call these objectives, but objectives tend to be much smaller things that can be accomplished and assessed relatively easily. While this is still very, very big and broad, it covers the entire Eastern Hemisphere. So once I've determined what my lesson is going to be and what my standard and then my substandard or objective will be, I'm going to figure out what is it I want the students to do. Or maybe I knew that first and I'm tying the lesson into the art I wanted to do. But I would have the students create visual art depicting a particular family or community and indicating more than one of these impacts. So they could display this, they could demonstrate this in different ways. It could be related to going to a grocery store and not being able to get the groceries they need. It could be that a family is displaced to a different island or a different country or to a mainland somewhere. There are lots of ways that they could choose to do this and demonstrate their understanding. So I might require them that in their art, they would depict 2 of these impacts. So let's look at how this applies to what your assignment is. So you're going to give a grade level, and mine would be 7, a lesson title. I'm not going to call this art plan and example for integrated arts. I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to give this a particular lesson title that's going to be related to the standard and what it is the students are going to be doing. So it might have something to do with the volcano eruption in Tonga and the art related to that. So I would create a general title that gives an indication about what the lesson is going to be about. So for my standard, I would put both 7.4 and then I would copy that standard in. And then for the objective, you're going to create your own objective for that. And it's got to be something that you can measure and you can assess. So you can say create, but for this one specifically, my students would be painting. So I might use paint as my verb. Students will paint, and I'm only going to use one verb to show what the students will do. Students will paint their interpretation of at least 2 resulting disasters. Let's see, of at least 2 resulting impacts of the volcano eruption in Tonga. So students will paint, and then I'll tell what they're going to paint. And the objective is going to be that easy, and it's going to very specifically indicate what the students will do. Now I'm going to, as the teacher, I'm going to describe in detail what I will share with the students about it. This could be bullet points. This could be a paragraph. And you can refer to yourself as I in this. You don't have to say the teacher will. You could just give bullet points. I will tell students too. Next, I will explain how they will blah, blah, blah. And then this is going to be the most detailed part of your project. But then you've got to think of an assessment. How are you going to determine if the students accurately demonstrated this information? Did they master this? And this could come from something like a rubric or a checklist or anecdotal notes. You don't have to actually provide the rubric, but you would need to describe it. I will assess the student's artwork with a rubric that measures or that indicates. And I'll show you an example of one. This is an example of one that's just for visual arts. This one is not specific to that social studies lesson. So you could take something like this, but then, have an area, have one of the indicators be something about indicating the 2 impacts clearly. So you can kind of take a traditional rubric for a lesson and kind of combine it with an arts one. So you can Google, I'm on my Pinterest page here, but you go wherever you want to find what kind of an assessment you feel like would work for you. A checklist, you may have 4, 5, 6 items on the checklist. Did you do it? Yep. And checklist, and that's it. But then you would explain a little bit about what's going to be on that checklist, because the assessment part is worth 5 points. So don't disregard that. So this whole lesson is worth 30 points. I'm sorry, 50 points. But right here, the instructional procedures, this piece by itself is worth 30 points. All the other elements are worth 5 points. So that tells you that this should be very detailed. Right, I hope that helped clarify things a little bit. And I'm excited to see how you are able to tie in art with a core content area, such as social studies, science, language arts, and even math. Students can create art in math. Students can create art in any content area. So enjoy the project, and I hope you have a really good time with it.